March 2005, the North Atlantic, 800 feet below the surface. A U.S. Navy Ohio-class submarine is on deterrent patrol. She has been submerged for 64 days. Nobody outside her hull knows where she is. Not foreign navies, not allied governments, not the families of the 155 men on board. The boat is carrying 24 Trident II ballistic missiles. Each missile can carry up to 8 warheads. The largest of those warheads, the W-88, has a yield of 475 kilotons. That is roughly 30 times the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. She makes no radio transmissions. She emits no detectable sound. She leaves no wake. For 77 days, she will move through one of the most heavily monitored oceans on Earth, and nobody will find her. That is what a ballistic missile submarine is built to do. Not fight, disappear. The Ohio-class submarines are the largest ever commissioned by the U.S. Navy, 560 feet long, 18,750 tons submerged. A pressure hull built from HY-80 high-strength steel, several inches thick. They have been on continuous deterrent patrol since 1982. And the thing that makes them work is not the size, not the missiles, not the reactor. It is what is hidden inside the hull, layer after layer of systems most people have never seen and never think about. Systems that manufacture air, systems that chemically scrub poison out of the atmosphere, systems that absorb sound before it leaves the hull. A nuclear reactor that runs for decades without refueling, separated from the crew bunks by shielding and silence. A submarine is not a ship that goes underwater. It is a sealed environment that manufactures every condition of human survival from scratch for months at a time with no resupply, no sunlight, and no contact with the surface. Everyone knows what a submarine looks like from the outside. Almost nobody knows what is inside one. Let us go through it, system by system, from the hull to the missiles. Start at the boundary. The pressure hull. The Ohio-class pressure hull is built from HY-80, a nickel-chromium molybdenum alloy designed to yield at 80,000 pounds per square inch. That's the number in the name. The plates are welded into a single cylindrical pressure vessel, 42 feet in diameter. Outside the pressure hull sits the outer hull, with ballast tanks, sonar arrays, and free-flooding spaces between the two. The reason for that gap is physics. Every 33 feet of depth adds 1 atmosphere of pressure. At the boat's publicly stated test depth of 800 feet, the water outside is pressing on every square inch of the hull with roughly 360 pounds of force. A submarine the size of an Ohio class is supporting the weight of a small skyscraper distributed across her skin, continuously, for months at a time. If the hull fails, it fails instantly. There is no slow flooding at depth. The USS Thresher, lost on April 10, 1963, dove below her crush depth during sea trials and imploded with all 129 men on board. Steel that thick does not bend at depth. It detonates inward. Inside the hull, the crew lives without a single window. There are no portholes on a modern submarine. Glass is a structural weakness, and at depth, the outside is black anyway. The boat's sense of the world comes from sonar, from inertial navigation, from a thin trail of data piped into the control room. The men inside spend 77 days in a steel tube the length of 2 football fields, and they never see the ocean they are moving through. Several inches of steel stand between 155 people and a pressure that would crush them in a heartbeat. And inside that steel tube sits something even more dangerous. The thing that lets the boat stay down for months in the first place. The system that lets the boat stay down is the S-8G nuclear reactor. It sits in its own compartment, roughly 2/3 of the way aft, sealed off from the rest of the boat by a shielded bulkhead. The SHG is a pressurized water reactor designed by General Electric for the Ohio class, and it does something no diesel engine can do. It runs without air. A diesel submarine has to surface every day or two to recharge its batteries. The Ohio class doesn't surface. Not for fuel, not for power, not for anything. The reactor produces roughly 220 megawatts of thermal energy, enough to drive a single shaft and propeller at the stern. Top speed underwater is over 20 knots officially, and almost certainly higher. The core uses highly enriched uranium, over 90% U-235. That fuel load lasts about 20 years before the boat needs a midlife refueling. The next generation Columbia class will go further still, with a life of ship core designed to last the full 42-year service life of the hull. Never refueled, never opened. The reactor compartment is wrapped in layered radiation shielding. Background radiation inside the boat is lower than what you would absorb while walking around Denver. Crewmen who sleep 200 feet from an operating nuclear reactor are exposed to less radiation than airline pilots. But the reactor does not run itself. The engineering watch in the maneuvering room, a small team at a panel of valves, gauges, and breakers, controls primary coolant, secondary steam, electrical load, and reactor power continuously. They work long watches in a compartment where the air is hot and the noise never stops. The Navy's nuclear propulsion program, the one Admiral Hyman Rickover built starting in the late 1940s, has run for over 75 years without a single reactor accident on a U.S. Navy ship. Not 3 Mile Island, not Chernobyl, not Fukushima, zero. That record exists because of how the men in that compartment are trained. They undergo roughly 2 years of nuclear power school and prototype training before they ever step onto an operational boat. A culture of procedural discipline that the rest of the Navy borrows from. The reactor is the most dangerous object on the submarine. It is also the most controlled. A reactor that can run for 2 decades on a single core. A program that has never had an accident. A small team in a hot compartment keeping it all in check. If you're starting to see why these boats can disappear for months at a time, hit that subscribe button. We are only halfway down, and the systems below get even stranger. Because the reactor only solves one problem. It generates power. Power does not feed you. Power does not give you AIR. And 155 men sealed inside a steel tube need both every minute for 77 days straight. The atmosphere inside a submerged submarine is a closed loop. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out. Every breath those 155 men take has to be made, scrubbed, and made again. Oxygen comes from electrolysis. The boat's oxygen generators, which the crew calls the bomb because early versions were prone to catastrophic failure, split purified fresh water into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity from the reactor. The oxygen is metered into the ventilation system. The hydrogen is vented overboard. The generators run continuously, producing enough oxygen to keep the crew breathing indefinitely as long as the reactor stays critical. Carbon dioxide is the harder problem. Every man on board exhales roughly 2 pounds of carbon dioxide per day. Across 155 men, that is over 300 pounds of carbon dioxide added to the boat's atmosphere every 24 hours. Let it build up and the crew gets headaches, then confusion, then unconsciousness. The boat removes it with monoethanolamine scrubbers, an amine solution that chemically binds to carbon dioxide, which is then heated to release the gas, and the gas is vented overboard through a compressor. The scrubbers run continuously. They never stop. Then there is everything else. Carbon monoxide from cooking, hydrogen from the batteries, refrigerant leaks, off-gassing from paint, plastic, electronics, and human skin. The boat runs catalytic burners to oxidize carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide, which the scrubbers then remove. Atmosphere monitors sample the air every few minutes for more than a dozen contaminants. The chief of the watch reads the numbers off a panel in the control room and adjusts the chemistry of the boat the way a brewer adjusts a mash. Distillation. Fresh water comes from distillation. Evaporators boil seawater under vacuum and condense the steam, producing thousands of gallons of fresh water a day. Most of it goes to the reactor's secondary loop and the crew's drinking supply. Showers are rationed. Sailors call them Navy showers, roughly 30 seconds of water to wet down, soap up, and rinse. Laundry runs on a schedule. Food is loaded before the patrol begins. An Ohio-class boat takes on tens of tons of food for a long patrol, frozen, refrigerated, and dry stores packed into every available space, including under the deck plates the crew walks on. By the end of the patrol, those deck plates have dropped as the food underneath gets eaten. The crew measures the time remaining by the height of the floor. AIR is manufactured from water. Carbon dioxide is pulled out of every breath. Water boiled out of the ocean. Food stored under the deck plates and eaten down to nothing. A city's worth of life support, packed into a steel tube running on power from a reactor that hasn't seen sunlight in decades. But all of it, the reactor, the air, the water, the food, is useless if anyone can hear you. Sonar is the only sense that works at depth. Light dies in the first 100 feet. Radar cannot penetrate seawater. Everything an enemy anti-submarine platform, whether a destroyer, a patrol aircraft, or an attack submarine, learns about a submerged target from sound. So an Ohio class is built to make no sound. The outer hull is covered in anechoic tiles, rubber panels filled with millions of tiny voids that absorb active sonar and dampen noise leaking out of the hull. Inside the boat, the turbines, pumps, and generators sit on rubber and spring isolators called rafts, blocking vibration from ever reaching the steel. The S8G reactor uses natural circulation at low power. Coolant moves through the loop by convection alone. No pumps, no noise. The reactor that powers everything is also one of the things that makes the boat hardest to find. The exact acoustic signature is classified. But the public claim is this: an Ohio-class boat at her 20-knot cruising speed is as quiet as a Lafayette-class submarine from the 1960s at 6 knots. Quiet enough to be mistaken for a whale on enemy sonar. Quiet enough to disappear inside the ambient noise of the ocean itself. Now, the mission. Behind the sail, in the center of the boat, sit 24 vertical launch tubes. Each tube is 88 inches in diameter and runs 4 decks tall. Each tube holds one Trident II D5 ballistic missile. The missile is 44 feet long and weighs 130,000 pounds. Its range is over 7,000 miles. The D5 can hit a target on the far side of the planet from a launch position somewhere in the Pacific or Atlantic that nobody knows. Each missile carries up to 8 warheads, a mix of W-76 warheads at 100 kilotons and W-88 warheads at 475 kilotons. 8 warheads from a single missile, each one independently targeted. A single Ohio-class boat carries more destructive potential than every bomb dropped in the Second World War several times over. And the most important fact about all of it, in the more than 40 years since the first deterrent patrol in October 1982, no Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine on patrol has ever been publicly known to be located by an adversary. Not by Soviet sonar, not by Russian intelligence, not by anyone. Roughly 4 boats are at sea right now, somewhere. The Pentagon won't say where. That's the point. March 2005, the North Atlantic, 800 feet below the surface. The boat is on day 64 of patrol. below the anechoic tiles, below the pressure hull, below the reactor compartment, below the oxygen generators and the carbon dioxide scrubbers, below the food stored under the deck plates, below the 24 missile tubes, 155 men eat, sleep, and stand watch in a steel tube that has not surfaced in over 2 months. From the outside, a submarine looks like a vehicle. From the inside, it's a power plant, a chemistry lab, a city, and an arsenal, welded into 560 feet of steel that refuses to be found. Somewhere in an ocean tonight, a boat is doing exactly that, and nobody knows where she is.